Welcome back to part two. If you've heard the first part, you already know where we left things. On the edge of marriage, caught between suspicion and silence, with the truth hiding somewhere in the shadows. But here's the thing about silence. It doesn't last forever. Something always breaks. And when it did for us, it wasn't gentle. This is where the story picks back up. The night Claire finally sat across from me, steady-eyed, and said the words I'd been dreading. We need to talk. What came after changed everything. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the rest of this journey. And drop a comment below with your thoughts as the story unfolds. She was trying, I could see that. Or maybe she was covering her tracks, softening me up before the hammer fell. I couldn't tell anymore, and that uncertainty was killing me. One evening, I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my study, staring at the folder again. My hand hovered over the drawer. All I had to do was sign. One stroke of a pen, and I'd be safe, financially, emotionally, legally. No more waiting for her to decide my fate. But as I sat there, I heard her footsteps upstairs, light and familiar. I thought about the sound of her laugh, the way she used to reach for my hand without thinking, the thousand little moments that had once made us inseparable. My chest ached with the weight of it all. I didn't sign that night, but I knew I couldn't keep living in limbo much longer. Something had to break, and when it did, it wouldn't be gentle. The break came sooner than I expected. It was a Thursday evening. Claire had been restless all day. I could tell by the way she moved around the house, opening drawers, checking her phone, chewing her lip. By the time we sat down for dinner, I could practically feel the tension radiating off her. Halfway through the meal, she set her fork down with a deliberate clink and looked at me square in the eyes. "Mark," she said, her voice steady but low, "I can't wait any longer. We need to talk tonight." My stomach twisted. This was it, the conversation I'd been bracing for, the one that had haunted every sleepless night. I set my glass down slowly, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "All right," I said. "Then talk." She hesitated, her fingers tightening around her napkin. "I know you've noticed me being distant. I know you felt me pulling away. And you're right, I've been keeping things from you. But it's not what you think." My pulse thundered. Not what I think. I wanted to laugh in her face. She took a breath. "For months, I've been planning something. And the reason I didn't tell you is because I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted it to be good. But it's gotten out of control, and I can see it's hurting us." Her words didn't match the storm in my head. My hands curled into fists beneath the table. "A surprise," I repeated, my voice rough. She nodded, her eyes glistening now. "The renovations. The house. I've been working with contractors, designers, even Davenport. They handle permits and zoning issues, and yes, some legal filings. That's why I went there. That's why I've been meeting with people in secret. Because I wanted to fix this place up for us. For you. For us to have a new start instead of," her voice cracked, "instead of this constant distance." The room tilted. My mind reeled back to the sketches I'd found in her closet, the swatches, the notes, the things I had dismissed as camouflage. Could she be telling the truth? I searched her face, desperate for any sign of deception. But all I saw was exhaustion, and something I hadn't expected, hurt. "Mark," she whispered, "I feel like I've lost you these past few weeks. And I don't even know why. I'm trying, but it feels like you're already gone." My throat went dry. The words were right there, about the tracker, the recorder, the accounts I'd hidden, but I couldn't bring myself to say them. I couldn't confess how far I'd gone. Instead, I sat there, trapped in the crushing weight of everything unsaid. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe I was the one who had been tearing us apart all along. The silence after her confession stretched so long I could hear the hum of the refrigerator behind us. Claire's eyes searched mine, waiting for something, anger, relief, forgiveness. But I had nothing to give. My thoughts were a snarl of suspicion and guilt, each pulling in opposite directions until I felt like I might split in two. "Say something," she whispered finally. I opened my mouth, then closed it. The words I wanted to speak. "I don't trust you. I've been watching you. I know about Davenport. Choke me." To say them would mean revealing how far I had gone, how deep I'd sunk into paranoia. And if I admitted that, there'd be no coming back. So instead, I forced out the safest lie I could muster. I didn't know. Her face softened, a small sigh escaping her lips, as if she believed me. But the relief in her eyes only made me feel worse. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine. I wanted this to bring us closer, Mark, not push us further apart. I thought, if I could surprise you with something new, something exciting, maybe we could find our way back to each other. Her touch was warm, familiar. For a second, I almost let myself lean into it, almost let myself believe she was telling the whole truth. But then the memory of that recorder came back to me, her voice whispering, "He doesn't know yet. I'll tell him when it's finalized." That didn't sound like cabinets and paint swatches. That sounded like something far more final. I pulled my hand back gently, my heart heavy. "I just need some time to process," I said. She nodded, though I saw the flicker of pain in her eyes before she looked away. That night, lying beside her in the dark, I stared at the ceiling and felt more trapped than ever. If she was telling the truth, then I had been dismantling my own marriage for nothing. If she wasn't, then I was still being played. Either way, the clock was ticking toward the end of the month. And by then, I would have to decide whether to trust her or end this myself. The days that followed were unbearable. On the surface, life went on like nothing had changed. Claire hummed while she cooked dinner, left notes on the counter reminding me about errands, even kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work. To anyone else, we might have looked like a normal couple. But under the surface, the air between us was electric with tension. Every time her phone buzzed, I froze. Every time she stepped outside to take a call, my chest tightened. When she smiled at me, I wondered if it was real or just another mask. And then there was the recorder. Each morning, after she left, I checked it. Most days it captured nothing. But then came one recording that made my blood run cold. It was Claire's voice again, quiet but firm. Yes, the timeline's still the same. End of the month. He has no idea. Silence. Then, faintly, the voice of another person on the line. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was businesslike, professional. Claire again. "I just want it to be smooth. No surprises. No surprises." The irony nearly made me laugh. She was planning in secret, talking about no surprises, while I sat there with proof she was orchestrating something behind my back. I slammed the recorder shut, my pulse racing, my hands shaking with fury. Renovations? A fresh start? No, that was smoke and mirrors. The truth was right there in her own words. She was hiding something, waiting until the end of the month to drop it on me. I stood in my study, the folder from my lawyer still in the drawer, and felt the weight of a decision pressing down harder than ever. Should I wait and let her make her move? Or should I strike first, file, expose everything, and take control of the ending before she could script it herself? The clock was ticking, and I knew the showdown wasn't just coming. It was already here. That night, I watched her more closely than ever. Claire moved around the house like everything was normal, folding laundry, chatting about her day, scrolling through her phone with that faint smile that had once felt like home to me. But all I saw was the mask, the calm before the storm. At dinner, she asked me if I'd thought more about fresh starts. The words made my fork freeze halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean by that?" I asked carefully. She gave me a small smile, almost shy. "You know, ways we can make things feel new again. Not just the house, but us. I feel like we've been stuck, and I don't want us to be." Her voice was soft, almost pleading, but I couldn't trust it, not with the recording still echoing in my head. End of the month. He has no idea. I nodded absently, pretending to listen, while my mind raged. Was this her way of softening me up, getting me to lower my guard before she hit me with the papers? Later, as we climbed into bed, she reached for me. Just a simple touch, her hand brushing mine beneath the covers. For a heartbeat, I wanted to grab it, to squeeze back, to let myself believe in the woman I had married. But my hand stayed still. I lay there stiff, silent, staring into the dark as her breathing slowed. Inside, though, I was burning. I had all the evidence I needed. The meetings, the folder, the recording, the whispers about timelines, and no surprises. The end of the month was only days away now, and I realized I couldn't wait anymore. If Claire thought she was going to ambush me, she was in for a shock, because I wasn't going to let her end this marriage on her terms. The showdown would happen on mine. The morning of the 29th, I woke before dawn. The house was still, the air heavy with that eerie quiet that only comes before something inevitable. I lay there for a moment, listening to Claire's soft breathing beside me, and thought, this is it. Today, everything breaks. I slipped out of bed and went to my study. The folder for my lawyer sat in the drawer like it had been waiting for this very moment. I pulled it out, laid the papers flat on the desk, and stared at the signature line. One signature, and I'd beat her to it. I'd control the narrative. I wouldn't be the fool caught off guard while she served me papers with that same calm smile she'd worn these past weeks. My hand hovered over the pen, but something inside me faltered. Was I about to detonate a marriage? 15 years together, countless memories, a life built brick by brick. Over suspicions I still hadn't confronted her with openly? Over recordings and half-heard phone calls? I thought about her smile when she'd show me the swatches. The way her voice cracked when she said she just wanted a fresh start. The way her hand had reached for mine in bed. What if I'd been wrong? The thought cut deeper than any fear of betrayal. Because if I was wrong, then all of this, moving assets, trackers, recorders, lawyers, wouldn't just be preparation. It would be destruction. By my own hand. My chest tightened. I pushed the folder aside, stood, and walked to the window. The sky was pale with the first light of morning. Behind me, I heard Claire's footsteps. Mark? Her voice came softly from the doorway. She was still in her robe, her hair messy from sleep. You're up early. I turned slowly, the weight of weeks of suspicion pressing on me like a vice. This was it, the moment I had to choose. Confront her. Reveal everything. Demand the truth. Or sign the papers and end it all without another word. I didn't answer her right away. Claire leaned against the doorframe, her eyes searching mine. She looked tired, worn down. But not deceitful, not calculating, not like the villain I had built in my head. And that only twisted me up worse, because I couldn't reconcile the woman standing there with a voice on the recorder whispering about finalizing things by the end of the month. Finally, I forced myself to speak. My voice came out rough. Claire, what exactly have you been hiding from me? Her brow furrowed, confusion flickering across her face. What do you mean? I gestured vaguely toward the study, the desk, the folder that wasn't visible but felt like it was burning a hole in the room. The meetings, Davenport, the phone calls, the secrets, all of it. Just tell me the truth. Please. For a moment, she just stared at me, her lips parting like she didn't know whether to be angry or heartbroken. Then she crossed the room slowly, carefully, and sat on the edge of the desk. Mark, she said gently, I've been planning a surprise. And it's not just renovations. It's everything. I blinked, my pulse hammering. Everything. She nodded, tears beginning to shine in her eyes. I've been meeting with Davenport because they're helping me finalize the paperwork for refinancing and permits. It's complicated, and I didn't want to burden you with it until I was sure it would go through. The end of the month, that's when everything gets approved. That's why I kept saying I'd tell you then. Her words landed like stones in my chest. Refinancing. Permits. Not divorce. Not betrayal. But my mind rebelled. It has to be a lie. It has to be. Then why? I asked, my voice shaking now. Why say I don't know yet? Why keep it from me at all? Her tears slipped free then. Because you haven't been yourself, Mark. You've been cold, distant. I thought if I told you too soon, you'd see it as one more fight, one more burden. I just wanted to fix something for us. I wanted to give us a chance to feel new again. She reached for my hand. Her grip was warm, trembling. I wasn't planning to leave you. I was planning to save us. Her words echoed in my head, louder than the pounding of my heart. And in that moment, sitting in my study with divorce papers in one drawer and my wife's tear-streaked face in front of me, I realized the truth. The real betrayal wasn't hers. It was mine. The realization hit me like a freight train. All the late nights in my study, the accounts I'd hidden, the tracker under her car, the recorder in her desk. Every desperate move I'd made to protect myself had been built on a lie of my own making. My paranoia, my fear, my refusal to simply ask her. Claire sat across from me, her eyes wet, her hand still holding mine. She didn't know. She couldn't know just how deep my betrayal ran. And the weight of that secret pressed down on me so hard I thought it might crush me. "Mark," she whispered, her voice cracking, "do you even want this marriage anymore?" Her question cut deeper than any of the suspicions I'd carried. Because I did want it. God, I wanted it, but I'd spent weeks acting like I didn't. I had turned us into enemies without giving her a chance to prove me wrong. I opened my mouth, but no words came. My throat was dry, my chest tight. What could I possibly say? Sorry I treated you like a threat? Sorry I built a fortress to keep you from taking what was already yours? Sorry I didn't trust you enough to believe you loved me still? I closed my eyes, shame burning in me like fire. She squeezed my hand once, then pulled back, standing slowly. "I'll give you some time to think," she said softly, her voice heavy with exhaustion. She turned and walked upstairs, her footsteps echoing through the quiet house. I sat there in my study long after she was gone, staring at the folder of divorce papers in the drawer. My lawyer's words came back to me. File first, control the narrative. But now, the narrative wasn't hers to control. It was mine. And I had already written it in suspicion, fear, and betrayal. The real question was, could I rewrite it, or had I already gone too far? I stayed in that chair until the sun dipped low, shadows stretching across the study like bars of a cage. Every detail of the past few weeks replayed in my head, but this time through a different lens, not of betrayal, but of my own mistrust. The glow of her phone at night, the hurried texts, the folder from Davenport. Each one had been a puzzle piece I forced into the picture I feared most, until I convinced myself it was the only picture that existed. But the truth? I hadn't given her the chance to show me another one. The thought made me sick. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out the folder. The divorce papers stared back at me, cold and clinical, lines and boxes waiting for a signature that would end 15 years of a life together. My name was typed neatly at the top, as if mocking me. My hand hovered over the pen. One stroke, and I'd be safe. One stroke, and I'd never have to wonder again. But safety had already cost me too much. Safety had made me blind. With a sharp breath, I shoved the folder back into the drawer and slammed it shut. The sound echoed through the room, final and violent, like the closing of a door I wasn't ready to walk through. Upstairs, I heard Claire moving around, her dresser drawer sliding open, the soft thud of something set down. For a brief, panicked second, I wondered if she was packing a bag. I stood quickly and rushed to the staircase, heart hammering. At the top, I found her sitting on the edge of the bed, not packing but staring down at her hands. When she looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed but steady. "Mark," she said quietly, "I can't keep living like this, wondering if the man I married even wants to be here anymore." Her words hit harder than anything the past few weeks had thrown at me. And I knew this was it, the turning point. Either I told her the truth, all of it, or I let the silence finish what my suspicion had already started. My throat tightened as I stood in the doorway, staring at her. This was the moment I had avoided for weeks, the moment I had buried beneath strategy, hidden accounts, and sleepless nights. But now it was here, staring me dead in the eye in the form of my wife, sitting on the bed, her face tired but resolute. I stepped into the room slowly, the floorboards creaking under my weight. "Claire," my voice cracked raw, "I do want this marriage, more than anything. But I made a mess of things." Her brows knit. "What do you mean?" I sat on the edge of the bed, a careful distance between us, my hands gripping my knees to stop them from shaking. The truth pressed at my chest, ugly and heavy, but it demanded to come out. "I thought you were leaving me," I said quietly. "I thought you were planning a divorce." And my words caught. Saying it out loud made me hear how insane it all sounded. But I forced myself to continue. "I moved money. I hid things. I even tracked you, recorded you." Her eyes widened, her mouth falling open. She pulled back slightly, as if the air between us had just turned toxic. "You what?" I swallowed hard, shame burning hot in my chest. I was scared. I kept seeing signs, kept twisting them in my head until I convinced myself you were preparing to leave. And instead of trusting you, my voice broke. I treated you like the enemy. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Claire stared at me, her expression shifting between shock, hurt, and something that looked dangerously close to betrayal. Mark, how could you? She whispered. I had no defense, no excuse that could soften what I'd done. I thought I was protecting myself, I said, my voice shaking. But the truth is, I was destroying us. And I see that now. Her hands trembled in her lap. All this time, I was trying to build something for us, and you were tearing it down. The words cut deep because they were true. I lowered my head, unable to meet her gaze. I'm sorry, Claire. God, I'm so sorry. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was fighting her. I felt like I was begging her not to leave. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if sorry would be enough. Claire didn't speak right off. I wanted her to yell. I wanted her to scream at me, throw something, call me every name I deserved. Anything would have been better than the silence. Finally, she whispered, Do you even realize what you've done? Her voice wasn't loud. It was worse. It was quiet, steady, the kind of voice people use when they're holding back a flood. I forced myself to look at her. Yes, I do. I let fear turn me into someone I don't even recognize. Someone you don't recognize. And I hate myself for it. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. You spied on me. You tracked me. You treated me like a stranger when all I was trying to do was help us. Her voice cracked on the last word, and it nearly broke me. I leaned forward, my hands clasped together. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me right now. Maybe ever. But I need you to know that it wasn't because I don't love you. It was because I was terrified of losing you. And instead of holding on tighter, I pushed you further away. Her lips trembled. She turned her face, staring at the wall as if she couldn't even look at me. The silence stretched, each second a knife twisting in my gut. Finally, she said, You've hurt me, Mark, more than I think you realize. The words gutted me, because I could see it in her eyes, the pain, the fracture I had carved into her trust. I know, I said softly, and I don't know how to fix it, but if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life trying. Her eyes closed, tears slipping down her cheeks. She didn't answer. She didn't move. And in that unbearable silence, I knew one thing for certain. The showdown I had been preparing for wasn't about lawyers or money anymore. It was about whether love could survive what I had done. That night, I barely slept. Claire lay beside me, her back turned, her breaths uneven. Every so often, I thought I heard the faint catch of a sob, muffled into her pillow. I reached out once, my hand hovering inches from her shoulder, but I pulled back, ashamed. My touch wasn't welcome, not after what I confessed. When dawn finally came, the house felt different, fragile, like the walls themselves had overheard everything and were bracing for collapse. I made coffee, set a mug at her place at the table, and sat there waiting, rehearsing the words I needed to say. When she finally came downstairs, she didn't look at me right away. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her face pale. She took the coffee without a word, sat across from me, and stared into the mug. Claire, I said carefully, my voice raw. I meant what I said last night. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. She didn't answer at first, just kept staring at the steam rising from her coffee. Finally, she said quietly, Do you even understand how much you broke us? The words hit harder than a scream. Yes, I said, forcing myself not to look away. I do, and I hate myself for it. But Claire, I don't want this to be the end of us. Please, tell me what I can do. She lifted her eyes then, meeting mine. For the first time in weeks, there was no confusion, no suspicion, no half-hidden agendas, just raw hurt. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again, she whispered. But I'm not ready to give up yet. Hope flickered in my chest, fragile but alive. I reached across the table slowly, this time letting my hand rest openly between us. She hesitated, then, hesitant, trembling, she set her hand in mine. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. But it was a start. And for the first time, I realized the real battle wasn't between me and Claire. It was between me and the man I had let myself become. The next days were uneasy, like walking on glass. Claire and I spoke more, but every word felt fragile. She answered me, but there was hesitation behind her tone, as if she was measuring how much of herself she could safely give me. I couldn't blame her. I had shattered something sacred, the trust that had been the backbone of our marriage. We tried, though. On Saturday, she suggested we go for a walk around the neighborhood. We hadn't done that in months. The air was crisp, the late afternoon sun warm on our shoulders. At first, we walked in silence, the crunch of gravel under our shoes the only sound. But then she started pointing out little things. Mrs. Riley's new garden, the house down the street with fresh paint. Normal things, small things. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the faint echo of what it used to be like between us. But the shadow of what I'd done never left. That evening, as we sat on the couch, she turned to me, her voice quiet. If we're really going to fix this, Mark, no more secrets. From either of us. Ever again. Her eyes locked onto mine, steady, unflinching. It wasn't a request. It was a demand. I nodded slowly, my throat tight. No more secrets. But inside, shame burned. Because even though I wanted to promise her everything, I hadn't told her the full truth. She knew about the tracker and the recorder, yes, but she didn't know about the assets, the hidden accounts, the fortress I had built to protect myself. And telling her would mean risking the last fragile thread holding us together. So I stayed silent. And in that silence, I felt the weight of a new lie take root. Weeks passed, and on the surface, things began to look normal again. Claire threw herself into the renovation plans, meeting with contractors openly now, leaving sketches on the kitchen counter instead of hiding them. Sometimes she'd hold swatches up to the light and ask my opinion. I gave it, though my answers were hesitant, careful, like I was afraid the wrong shade of paint might undo the fragile piece we were rebuilding. We even started having dinner together again, real conversations that weren't laced with accusations. She laughed once, a soft laugh at something clumsy I said, and the sound hit me like a memory of a life I thought we'd lost. But underneath, I carried the weight of the truth I still hadn't shared. Every time I looked at her, every time she reached for my hand, every time she said, "No more secrets," my chest clenched with guilt. Because the biggest secret of all was still locked away in my study, in accounts she didn't know existed, in transfers she couldn't trace. I told myself it was harmless now. Insurance. A safety net I might never need. But the truth was, it was a wall between us. And one night, that wall nearly came crashing down. I was in my study, reviewing one of the accounts, making sure everything was still shielded. I didn't hear Claire come in until her voice cut through the silence. "What are you working on?" I nearly jumped out of my chair, my screen still glowing with numbers that weren't supposed to exist. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me. Not angry, not suspicious, just curious. But my pulse thundered in my ears. If she stepped closer, if she saw the screen, everything would unravel. I snapped the laptop shut so fast it made a sharp clap in the quiet room. Claire's eyes narrowed at the sound. "Why'd you do that?" she asked, her tone even but laced with a subtle edge. My throat tightened. I forced a shaky laugh. "Work stuff. Boring spreadsheets. Trust me, you don't want to see it." She tilted her head, studying me. "Work stuff? At 10 o'clock at night?" Her voice wasn't accusatory, not yet, but it carried weight. A test. I stood, pushing the chair back, trying to mask the unease crawling up my spine. "You know me," I said lightly. "Numbers don't keep office hours." She didn't smile. She didn't move. She just looked at me, her eyes steady, searching. For a moment, I thought she saw right through me, saw the fortress I had built, the money I had hidden, the paranoia that still chained me. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Mark," she said softly, "I meant what I said. If we're going to fix this, no more secrets." Her words landed heavy, suffocating. I swallowed hard, forcing a nod. No more secrets. She held my gaze for another long moment before stepping back into the hallway. "Come to bed soon." When she disappeared, I sank back into the chair, my chest tight, my hands trembling, because I had just lied again. And I knew, if Claire ever uncovered the accounts, the transfers, the full extent of what I'd done, it wouldn't be suspicion that destroyed us. It would be the truth. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living on borrowed time. Every interaction with Claire felt like it had two layers. The surface where we laughed, cooked, made plans for the house, and the undercurrent where I wondered if she could sense the secrets I was still keeping. Her gaze lingered longer sometimes, like she was measuring me. And every time she said, "No more secrets," the words cut deeper. I wanted to tell her. God, I wanted to. But how do you confess to hiding money, to treating your own wife like a threat? How do you say, "I trusted my fear more than I trusted you"? The guilt ate at me. One afternoon, while Claire was out meeting a contractor, I poured myself a drink and sat in the study, staring at the login screen of one of the hidden accounts. My finger hovered over the trackpad, debating whether to close it for good, move everything back, erase the fortress, destroy the evidence of my mistrust. But I couldn't, because beneath the guilt, fear still lived. A whisper in the back of my mind. What if she really does leave one day? What if all of this comes back to save you? I slammed the laptop shut, disgusted with myself. That evening, Claire came home with takeout. She set the bags on the counter, glanced at me, and said, "You've been a million miles away lately." I forced a smile. Just work stress. But she didn't buy it. I could see it in her eyes. She sat down across from me at the table, her expression serious. "Mark, I'm trying. I've been trying so hard. But if you can't be honest with me, we're not going to make it." Her words hit like a hammer, because I knew she was right. And still, the truth stayed locked inside me, heavier than any secret I'd ever carried. I sat across from Claire, her words still echoing. "If you can't be honest with me, we're not going to make it." I opened my mouth, ready to let it all out. The accounts, the transfers, the fortress I'd built in fear. My chest tightened, the confession burning its way up my throat. But then I saw her eyes. They were tired, yes, but hopeful. She was giving me one last chance to be the man she married, to prove that the promises I'd made weren't just empty words. And I froze, because if I told her everything, I wasn't sure she'd ever look at me the same way again. So instead, I reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't want to lose us, Claire. I'm trying. I really am." Her eyes softened, but I could see the doubt lingering, like a shadow she couldn't shake. She squeezed my hand once, then let go, turning back to unpack the takeout. The moment was gone. The confession stayed locked inside me, choking me from the inside. That night, after dinner, she went to bed early. I stayed in my study, staring at the closed laptop like it was a weapon pointed at both of us. My reflection in the dark screen looked like a stranger, a man who had built a cage out of mistrust and was now trapped inside it. The house was quiet, but the silence wasn't comforting anymore. It was judgment. I leaned back in the chair, covering my face with my hands. I had set out weeks ago to protect myself from losing everything. And now I realized I might have done exactly that. Not because of Claire, but because of me. The end of the month arrived like a storm I couldn't stop. For weeks, I had been waiting for this day. The day Claire's whispered timelines would converge. The day her no surprises remark would finally make sense. I had imagined her serving me papers, imagined myself standing hollow in the kitchen while she packed a bag. I had rehearsed my reaction 1,000 times. Defiance, rage, control. But nothing could have prepared me for what actually happened. That evening, Claire came home carrying a thick folder. My chest clenched at the sight of it. It was the same folder I'd seen in her hands outside Davenport and Associates. She set it on the table, her face pale but determined. "Mark," she said softly, "it's time I show you." My breath caught. My hands curled into fists beneath the table. She opened the folder, sliding it toward me. I braced myself for legal papers, the death sentence of our marriage. But inside weren't divorce documents. They were renovation contracts, floor plans, approved permits, payment schedules. Davenport's letterhead was there, yes, but not for divorce. For refinancing, for construction approvals. I stared down at the pages, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. Claire watched me carefully. "This is what I've been working on. Well, I didn't want to tell you until it was real." End of the month. That's when everything cleared. The financing, the permits, the start date. I kept it quiet because I wanted it to be a surprise. A gift. A way to start fresh. Her voice cracked, her eyes shining with unshed tears. But instead, it's been tearing us apart. I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, my chest heavy. All the paranoia, all the secrecy, all the battles I had waged in silence. And it had all been for nothing. I sat frozen, staring at the documents spread across the table. Blueprints, itemized costs, legal filings for construction permits. Nothing about divorce. Nothing about lawyers circling for blood. Just plans. Plans for a future. My vision blurred as my mind replayed every moment of suspicion. The late-night pacing, the transfers, the surveillance. The way I turned my own wife into an enemy because of shadows I convinced myself were real. Claire's voice broke through the fog. I thought this would make you happy. That maybe we could find our way back if we had something new to hold on to. But these past weeks, it feels like I've lost you more than ever. Her words gutted me. I finally lifted my eyes to her. She looked exhausted, her shoulders sagging under the weight of weeks of secrecy, of trying to do something kind only for it to backfire spectacularly. And me? I felt like the villain in my own story. My voice cracked. I swallowed hard and tried again. Claire, I thought you were leaving me. Her face softened with confusion. Leaving you? Mark, why would you think that? Tears stung in my eyes. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Because I'm an idiot. Because I let fear convince me of things that weren't true. Because instead of trusting you, My throat closed. I couldn't bring myself to say the rest. I spied on you. I hid everything from you. I built walls instead of bridges. She leaned back in her chair, silent for a long moment. Then, softly, she said, "No wonder you've been so cold. You really thought I was planning to walk away." I nodded, shame pressing down like a weight on my chest. Claire's eyes shimmered with tears. I wasn't planning a divorce, Mark. I was trying to save our marriage. Her words landed like a final blow, knocking the air out of me. Because the truth was undeniable now. She had been trying to build us up while I had been tearing us down. I broke. The weight of everything I had done, everything I believed, came crashing down on me all at once. My hands shook as I pressed them to my face, shame searing hot against my skin. Claire, my voice cracked, almost a whisper. You don't understand how badly I've screwed this up. She leaned forward, her brow furrowed, tears streaking her cheeks. Then tell me, please, Mark, no more walls, no more half-truths. Just tell me. My chest tightened, my lungs straining under the weight of her gaze. This was it, the moment I had been dreading, the moment I had tried to outrun. But running had only led me here, cornered in my own lies. I didn't trust you. I confessed, my words stumbling out like stones. When I saw the emails, the texts, Davenport, I thought you were leaving. I thought you were planning a divorce. And instead of talking to you, I forced myself to look at her. I moved money. I hid assets. I tracked you. I even put a recorder in your desk. I built this whole fortress because I was sure you were about to destroy me. Claire's face went pale, her lips parting in shock. I kept going, my voice breaking. I convinced myself you were the enemy. And the whole time, you were trying to save us. The silence that followed was unbearable. Claire just stared at me, her hands trembling on the table. Her tears had stopped, but not because she was comforted, because she was stunned, gutted. Finally, she whispered, "You spied on me." I nodded weakly. "Yes." "You moved money behind my back." "Yes." She shook her head, a hollow laugh escaping her lips. "God, Mark," she pushed back from the table, standing abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "Do you have any idea what that feels like? To know your own husband thought you were plotting against him?" Her voice rose now, sharp with hurt. "I was trying to build a future for us. And you," she broke off, pressing her hands to her face. "You were preparing for war." I stood too, reaching for her, but she flinched back like my touch burned. And in that moment I realized. The truth had finally come out, but might have come too late. Claire stood there, her arms wrapped around herself, as if she was holding her own body together. Her tears weren't the quiet ones from before. They were hot, angry, betrayed. The kind of tears you don't just wipe away. You carry them. "I can't believe you, Mark," she said, her voice breaking but still sharp. 15 years. 15 years. And you really thought I would just walk away without a word? That I would lie to your face and gut you in secret? I opened my mouth, but no words came. I wanted to tell her I didn't want to believe it, that it was fear, not reason, that had driven me. But fear or not, I had acted like it was the truth. She shook her head, pacing the room. "Do you know what hurts the most? Not the spying, not even the money. It's that you trusted your paranoia more than you trusted me. You decided I was the villain in our story before you even asked me who I was." Her words cut deeper than anything I'd ever heard. "Claire," I whispered. "You're right. I did, and I hate myself for it." She stopped pacing, turned to me, her face streaked with tears but her eyes blazing. "You should, because you didn't just break my trust, you broke us." The silence that followed felt endless. Finally, she sank into the chair again, her head in her hands. Her voice was quieter now, trembling. "I don't know if I can forgive this. I don't know if I even know who I'm married to anymore." My knees felt weak. I lowered myself across from her, my hands clasped so tight my knuckles whitened. "Claire, if you walk away, I'll deserve it. But if there's even the smallest part of you that still wants us, I'll do anything. I'll tear down every wall I built. I'll go back everything I moved. I'll prove to you that I can be the man you married." She didn't look up, didn't speak, and I sat there, staring at the woman I had nearly lost, not because of her secrets, but because of mine. The next hours blurred into silence. Claire stayed at the table, her hands pressed to her face, while I sat opposite her, every second stretching into an eternity. The house around us seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in, trapping us inside the weight of everything unsaid. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, so quiet I almost missed it. "I don't even know where to start, Mark." I swallowed hard, leaning forward. "Start anywhere. I'll listen." Her hands dropped to her lap, her eyes red but steady. "You say you'll do anything. But trust, once it's broken like this, it's not just patched up with apologies. You hid things from me. You spied on me. You moved our life around without telling me." Her voice trembled again. "How do I ever feel safe with you again?" The question cut deep because I didn't have an easy answer. "I don't expect you to feel safe right away," I said slowly, forcing myself not to break eye contact. "But I'm willing to earn it back, however long it takes. Whatever it takes." Her gaze lingered on me, measuring my words, searching for cracks. For the first time, I saw not just pain, but calculation in her eyes, like she was deciding if the man in front of her was still worth the fight. Finally, she whispered, "Then prove it." My chest tightened. "Ow! Start by tearing it all down," she said, her tone sharpening. "The accounts. The transfers. The fortress you built. If you want me to believe you again, then no more hidden walls between us." Her demand struck like a verdict. I nodded slowly, my voice barely a whisper. "I'll do it." Claire leaned back in her chair, her expression still guarded. "We'll see." And I knew this wasn't forgiveness. This wasn't healing. This was a test. And it was only just beginning. The next morning, I opened my laptop with trembling hands. Claire sat across from me at the dining table, coffee in hand, her eyes fixed on me like a judge in a silent courtroom. She hadn't slept much. I could see in the dark circles beneath her eyes, but her resolve was sharp, unyielding. I logged into the first account. The numbers glared back at me, cold, clinical, the very fortress I had built to protect myself. My chest tightened as I clicked through the screens, reversing transfers, consolidating funds back into the accounts we shared. Each confirmation button felt like a confession. Each transfer undone felt like tearing down a wall brick by brick. And all the while, Claire watched. Not once did she look away. Not once did she soften. She needed to see it, not just hear promises, but witness me dismantling the very thing that had broken us. When I closed the last window, my hand was shaking. "It's done," I said hoarsely. Claire studied me for a long moment before nodding once. "That's a start." Her words weren't warm. They weren't forgiving. But they weren't final either. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Relief. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't healing. But it was proof that I was still in the fight. And as Claire stood, carrying her empty mug to the sink, she said softly, "If you ever lie to me again, Mark, it'll be the last time." I sat there, my chest hollow but lighter, and realized the truth. She hadn't left, but she could. And if I wanted to keep her, I'd have to fight harder than I ever had before. This time not against her, but against myself. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope. Claire didn't leave. That at least was something. She still came home at night, still made coffee in the mornings, still shared space with me. But the rhythm between us had changed. Every word, every glance carried a weight it hadn't before. She was watching me, not with love, not with suspicion exactly, but with a cautious calculation. And I couldn't blame her. I'd spent weeks treating her like the enemy, and one morning of undoing damage wasn't going to erase that. So I worked at it. Hard. I told her where I was going, even for small errands. I left my phone face up on the counter. I opened my laptop in the living room instead of hiding in my study. Small steps, every one of them a way of saying, "See, I have nothing to hide." Sometimes she softened. She'd smile faintly or ask me about my day in a way that didn't feel obligatory. Other times she was quiet, withdrawn, her guard still firmly in place. One evening, as we sat on the couch with the TV, playing some sitcom neither of us was really watching, she spoke without looking at me. "You've got a long way to go." My chest tightened, but I nodded. "I know." She turned then, her eyes steady on mine. "If you want us to survive this, you have to understand something. It's not just about the money or the spying. It's about the choice you made. You chose fear over trust. And until I believe you'll never make that choice again, I can't give you all of me." Her words sank into me like stones. I wanted to argue, to say fear had been instinct, not choice. But deep down, I knew she was right. I had chosen it, and it had nearly cost me everything. I reached for her hand, tentative. She let me hold it, but only for a moment before pulling away gently. It wasn't rejection, but it wasn't forgiveness either. And I realized then, rebuilding wasn't going to be one big gesture, one dramatic apology. It was going to be 1,000 small moments, stacked one on top of another, until maybe the foundation held again. The 1,000 small moments began to stack day by day. I made breakfast on mornings I used to rush out the door. I listened, really listened, when she talked about her job, instead of half-nodding while scrolling my phone. When she brought home new renovation samples, I didn't just glance and shrug. I asked questions, weighed in, gave her my full attention. It felt awkward at first, like learning how to walk again after forgetting how. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, I noticed the way her shoulders relaxed a little more each evening. The way she didn't double-check her phone when I said I was going to run an errand. The way her laughter, quiet and careful at first, began to return in flickers. But the wall was still there. One night, while we were brushing our teeth side by side, I caught her watching me in the mirror. Not suspiciously, not angrily, just thoughtfully, like she was asking herself whether the man standing next to her was really the one she'd married, or someone entirely different. I wanted to break the silence, to ask her outright what she was thinking, but the words felt fragile in my mouth. So I said nothing, and the moment slipped away. The hardest part wasn't the effort, it was the not knowing. Every night, I lay in bed beside her, wondering if she still loved me. Wondering if she was staying because she wanted to, or because she was waiting to decide whether I was worth saving. And yet, she was there. That fact alone, that she hadn't left when she had every reason to, gave me something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. But hope, I knew, wasn't enough. I'd have to earn the rest. Spring crept in slowly, softening the air and filling the neighborhood with the smell of fresh-cut grass. By then, Claire and I were months removed from the chaos of suspicion, but the fracture between us hadn't fully healed. We lived in a strange balance. We cooked together, laughed sometimes, even shared quiet evenings on the porch watching the sun go down. But beneath it all, I felt the distance, like a crack in glass that no amount of polishing could erase. One Saturday morning, Claire stood at the kitchen counter flipping through a stack of renovation plans. The cabinets were chosen, the permits cleared, the start date set. She looked up at me, her eyes cautious. "You're really okay with this?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, I'm okay with it." She studied me a moment longer, as if searching for any trace of hidden resistance. Finally, she exhaled, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Good, because I think it's going to be beautiful." And for the first time, I didn't see the plans as camouflage or deception. I saw them for what they really were, a chance. As the weeks went on, the house slowly transformed. Walls came down, floors were sanded, light poured in where shadows had lived. And strangely, as the house opened up, so did we. One evening, standing in the middle of the gutted kitchen, Claire turned to me, dust in her hair, sweat on her forehead. "It feels new," she said softly. I looked at her, really looked, and realized she wasn't just talking about the house. For the first time, I felt the faint, fragile sense that maybe we weren't just repairing wood and stone. Maybe we were repairing us. But even in that fragile piece, I knew the truth still lingered between us. The truth of what I had done, how far I had gone, how close I had come to destroying us. And until I faced that truth completely, I would never be free of it. The renovations moved forward, each day filling the house with the sounds of hammers and drills. The air smelled of sawdust and paint, and for once, the noise outside felt louder than the silence between us. Claire seemed lighter. She smiled more, laughed at small things, even hummed sometimes while unpacking new kitchen fixtures. Watching her, I realized how long it had been since I'd seen that version of her, the woman who found joy in the little things. But for me, the weight never lifted. Every time I passed my study, I felt it pressing on me. The memory of the fortress I'd built, the accounts I'd hidden, the hours I'd spent in that room, convinced she was my enemy. I had told her part of the truth, yes, but not all of it, not the full scope. And that secret gnawed at me like a parasite. One evening, after the contractors had gone and the house was quiet, I found Claire in the new kitchen space, sitting on a stool, sipping wine. The room was half finished, bare walls, wires dangling, but she looked at peace. I leaned against the doorway, watching her. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "The future." For the first time in a long time, it feels like we might actually have one. Her words should have filled me with relief. Instead, guilt pressed harder against my chest. I sat across from her, my hands clasped. "Claire, there's still more I need to tell you." Her smile faded. She set the glass down slowly, her eyes sharpening. "More." I nodded, shame burning in me. "When I thought you were leaving, it wasn't just the spying. I moved almost everything. Every asset, every account I could. I locked it all away so tightly that even if you had wanted to, you couldn't touch it." Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. I swallowed hard. "I tore it all down when you asked me to. But I need you to know just how far I went. Because if we're rebuilding, it can't be on lies. Not anymore." The silence between us stretched, heavy and suffocating. Claire's eyes glistened, though no tears fell this time. Finally, she whispered, "You nearly burned us to the ground, Mark." "I know," I said. My voice shook, "but I don't want ashes. I want us." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stood, walked around the half-finished counter, and placed her hand gently on mine. Her touch was fragile, trembling, but it was there. And in that small, tentative gesture, I realized something. We weren't whole. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. But we were still standing. And for now, that was enough. The summer light stretched longer into the evenings, spilling gold across our half-finished living room. By then, the contractors had finished the major work, leaving us with a home that felt brighter, more open, almost unfamiliar. And in a way, so did our marriage. Claire and I were careful with each other. We laughed more, but the laughter was tentative, like testing the strength of a bridge rebuilt after a storm. We shared meals, conversations, and quiet moments, but there was always that awareness, the memory of how close we'd come to losing it all. One evening, as we sat on the new back porch, Claire cradled a glass of wine, her gaze lost in the orange glow of the sunset. "Do you ever think," she said softly, "about how close we were to ending?" The question struck me like a blade. though her tone wasn't sharp. It was thoughtful. Every day, I admitted, my voice low, and every day, I hate myself for letting it get that far. She looked at me then, her eyes steady, not angry, but searching. You weren't the only one who kept things hidden, Mark. I should have told you what I was planning. I thought I was protecting the surprise, but really, I was shutting you out, and that gave your fear a place to grow. Her honesty disarmed me. For the first time, I didn't feel like the only one holding the blame. I guess we both built walls, I said quietly. Just different kinds. She nodded slowly, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. The difference is, mine were meant to build something. Yours were meant to protect from something that wasn't even there. Her words weren't cruel. They were true. I reached for her hand, and this time, she let me hold it. No hesitation. For the first time in months, the touch felt natural. Not forced, not tentative, but real. And sitting there on the porch, the air warm and the cicadas humming, I realized something I hadn't before. The story of us wasn't ending. It was just beginning again, messy, scarred, imperfect, but still ours. The weeks that followed were quieter, steadier. For the first time in months, the house wasn't filled with suspicion or the sound of walls being torn down. Instead, there was the clatter of dishes in the new kitchen, the hum of conversation over dinner, the occasional laughter that surprised us both when it escaped. But beneath it all, I knew we weren't healed yet. Healing wasn't quick. It was slow, deliberate, like sanding down rough wood until it was smooth again. One night, Claire sat beside me on the couch, her head resting lightly against my shoulder. The TV played some mindless sitcom, but we weren't really watching. After a long silence, she whispered, "I don't forgive you." Not yet. The words stung, but her voice was gentle. "And I don't expect you to," I admitted. "Not until I've earned it. Not until I've shown you that you can trust me again." She shifted, her eyes meeting mine. "Then keep showing me." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Every day, she leaned against me again, and we sat there in silence, not as a couple fully restored, but as two people choosing, again and again, not to give up. And for me, that was enough, because I'd finally learned the truth. The real fight in marriage isn't against betrayal or loss. It's against fear, pride, and silence. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. Sometimes I think back to that night. The night I first stared at the glow of Claire's phone in the dark, my mind spinning with suspicion. I remember the way my chest ached, the certainty that I was about to lose everything without even knowing why. Back then, I thought moving my assets would save me. I thought building walls would protect me. But all it did was blind me to the truth staring me in the face. The real danger wasn't Claire. It was me, my fear, my pride, my silence. And yet, she stayed. Even when I didn't deserve it, she stayed. She fought for us when I was too busy fighting against her. And because of that, I got a second chance, not just at our marriage, but at being the man I should have been all along. Now, when I lie beside her at night, the glow of her phone doesn't fill me with suspicion. It's just light, just life. And I remind myself that trust isn't something you guard with walls. It's something you build piece by piece every single day. If you made it this far into my story, thank you. Really. Sharing this isn't easy, but if it helps even one person choose trust over fear, then maybe something good came out of my mistakes. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment telling me your city. It's always fun to see where our stories travel. In the end, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about facing the truth, raw, painful, and unfiltered. I had prepared myself for betrayal, but what I found was far more complicated. The weight of my own doubts, the cracks I had created, and the fragile chance of rebuilding what I thought was already gone.